Hello, every bear. How's it going out there? Welcome into the stream. Welcome to Tuesday. I'm having one of those weeks where I'm like, it's been a hell of a week, hasn't it? It's only Tuesday. But that is what these streams are for, specifically. These streams are for getting out of that vibe and getting into the good one. We're going to relax. I'm going to paint some pretty flowers. I mean, come on. I've got a really, really good one today. I took the photograph this very summer's day of a very lovely... I don't know what kind of a bush it is because I'm not that good with flowers, but it's very pretty. Hydrangea, maybe? We'll see. I'm sure someone in the chat will be able to tell me. But it's quite lovely, and it is in its sort of last days. It doesn't last very long into the summer. So I noticed some of the petals already falling at the base of the plant. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to capture this. I'm going to paint it, immortalize it, so that this summer's growth can always be remembered. Because isn't that just the power of art? Capturing the ephemeral? We are going to go ahead and get started in just a minute here. I think I've got everything I need. I am going to tape down my paper, but I'll wait until I have the camera on so I can see that I'm lining everything up correctly. Oh, paint. That would probably be good. Where did I put that stuff? There it is. There it is. Got all my tubes of paint, which I will now unceremoniously throw down on my desk. Give them a good shaking around. I paint flowers so they will not die. That is the most beautiful thing, certainly that I've read today, but maybe in a very long time. I like that quite a bit. That's lovely. Paint shake ASMR. You know, they're in a glass jar. I keep them in an airtight glass jar that I think is meant for cookies, but I've never put any food in there, and I wouldn't after using it for gouache storage. But it feels like if I shake that thing around with all my paint tubes, the amount that I have, it will shatter. Which is what happened to my previous gouache paint container. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It was a couple of years ago now, I think, but I was definitely streaming, or like about to stream when it happened. I remember walking around and finding little tiny... You know when you clean up a shattered glass incident, and no matter how diligent you are, there's these tiny little crystals. Not even crystals, crystalloids. And they just keep popping back up again and again and again. I remember finding the tiniest, teeniest microscopic shards of glass for like a month after that happened, no matter how hard I deep cleaned. And it wasn't even like on carpet or anything, it was on wood, but you know, glass do be like that, well, with shattering and all. Alright, we are almost at the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it on over to the art cam. Let's do this. Hopefully everything is set up correctly. It should be. Hey, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and tape this thing down. While we ease into the groove for today, got the synth wave playing. Establishing the bounce of the vibes. Are you moving to YouTube for good? Nothing is like set in stone. I mean, you know, I'm not a big time anything, so I go where I go, but here's the current plan. I'm trying to build up my YouTube channel. So, we're very tiny over here, and it's quite nice. And, I've got all the bears at my back. So I'm trying to build up my YouTube channel while simultaneously also using the Twitch channel. Currently the only place you can subscribe to me. I am missing my neck. Oh, I know why that happened. It's because Honk, I resized it. Check this out. So I can make this bigger and smaller. And the program's like, what's happening? Where are you going? I don't understand. And now I can go in and actually grab my little head. Come along, dear. Go back into your little home. There we go. That looks pretty good. It lock you down so I'm not floating away again. Yeah, I errantly grabbed the window for Honk when I was moving stuff around pre-stream, so apologies for the horror show. But yeah, the Twitch YouTube thing. So I'm building up my YouTube channel because I would like to, post regular videos over here. I've got a lot of fun video ideas. And I'd also like to start streaming over here as well, because the raw deal is a little bit better of a split over here on YouTube, and it's also an easier place to get found. And I would like for other art friends to stop on by and for the channel to grow and for all of us to have more friends to do art with. But that said, it's going to be a very long process. It's going to be many, many months until I'm able, presumably, to start having memberships over here, which is the equivalent of Twitch subs. So I'm not, concerned with any of the monetization stuff for a long time. So in the meanwhile, I will be streaming Thursdays on Twitch. So your subs are going to proper use. You are still supporting me over there. And I do very much appreciate it, I must say. Anyone who is subbed over on the Twitch. But I will be back on Thursday over there. I'll be doing Marker Copic Fun. Yeah, the YouTube for VOD purposes, and also I gotta say for just getting set up purposes, it is really nice on YouTube. I've noticed that the back-end analytics are way better. It's comfy. It's very comfy. And also, once the features start popping in, once I start getting monetized and stuff, you'll notice a lot of the Twitch stuff will be coming over. I mean, I've already got the emotes. They're ready to go. And I've got a lot of other goodies for the back end of my YouTube show. Oh, I did actually figure out, speaking of the back end, we had a thing last time where new folks were coming in, subscribing. Thank you very much, by the way, if you're new to the stream and you found me on YouTube, either now or in the VOD later on, and you subscribe. On Twitch, there's a thing, that pops up and it says so-and-so subscribed. It turns out that on YouTube, there is a security feature, which, I'm not going to go against any security features, honestly. Great deal. On YouTube, by default, your subscribers, the things that you subscribe to, are set to private so that other people can't see your subscriptions by default, which makes sense to me. I like stuff to stay private when I'm browsing. But because of that specific rule on YouTube, that's why it doesn't pop up on screen and says, so-and-so subscribe to you on YouTube when you're streaming. Some people have turned it off manually, and then they may subscribe, and in those instances, it will pop up, and it will say so-and-so subscribed, and my little bear will dance around like a fool. But that is the reason. That is the reason why it's not as easy as with followers over on Twitch. So that's a weird thing. Yes, monetization is 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers in a year. That is true. I have the 1,000 subscribers. Thank you very much to everyone who's subscribed. I have, I think, over 1,700 now. We're closing in on 2K subscribers, which is incredible and kind of mind-boggling. But the watch hours, that's going to take a little bit of time. But honestly, like I said, it's going to be a slow process. I'm not in any particular rush. I'm not going to try to make any shocking or sensational or clickbaity videos if I can help it. I'm just here to post my regular stuff. Listen, I'm an old bear. I only know how to make a couple of things. It's mostly just chill painting with me. So, that's what it's going to be. And if anyone wants to come along for that ride, I'm very happy about that. And I genuinely think there are a lot of people who would come along for that ride. So, yeah, I think it'll come. I think it'll come. So with all that said, how about we do a little bit of sketching? As I said, I'm going to sketch some very lovely flowers that I saw earlier today, and I took a little photon graph. We're working very small yet again. This is my usual sketching size for gouache. And I want to first establish the bottom planes and then the big shapes. So for the big shapes of this plant, it's got kind of a angular base where all the roots are coming out of the ground and saying hello. Yeah, thankfully the watch hours on YouTube is across all different content, which is really nice, honestly. So it even counts for folks that come and watch the VODs after, and also the videos I'll be putting up. I put up one last week, and I've got one going up again this week. I'm going to try to stick for just one small video per week. Always, in the world of creating art-based content for the internet, I think it's really important to know when to set your limits and know how to appropriately set your limits so you don't get burnt out on doing the thing that you love to do. And, you know, first and foremost, I want to just make things. That is my prime guy, you know? I'm a maker, and that's what I love to do, so I never want to get in a position where churning out content makes me not want to make something, because I've been in that position before, and it feels bad. It feels really, really bad. So I'll just be doing painting demonstrations, little tips and how-tos. Little, like, 5 to 10 minute videos, probably in the lower range for the standalone guys, but and then, of course, we got the streams, which, look, I could do this all day. The streams are nice, because this is just what I would be doing normally, except I've got friends along for the ride. And it's highly motivating. So I'm building the branches outward. When you're building up a bush or a tree, in this case I'm doing a bush, but a tree works on the same principle. You know, they bust out of the ground and then they have movement. They want to go somewhere. And that's like sort of the prime thrust of a tree or a plant of any kind, is they're busting out the ground and then they move up and then gravity pulls them down to the side. So when you're building up a tree, like a tree trunk or any kind of plant like that, even a teeny tiny little garden plant, you can see it if you watch a fast time lapse of them. They come up pretty straight, and then they just start to fall over because of gravity. Then they usually have some kind of a support system to keep them going up. But you can plan that in when you're actually drawing the tree. You can think about, like, okay, well, there's the central thrust, all of the roots down at the bottom here, and then they bend and curve, and then you just think about where that line would fall when they're coming off to the side here. And a lot of those branches are trying to get out of each other's way so they can all optimally get that sunlight. Yeah, the YouTube recommendations are pretty sweet, honestly. I've had a lot of wonderful folks come through on the video that I posted last week. I wasn't expecting to get more than just a couple of views because, you know, again, my channel is very small. I got a baby YouTube channel. It's really little. And it's just learning. And also, like, there's no, you know, sensationalized stuff on here. There's not a lot of impetus to click through, even though I'm trying to, you know, I don't think my channel's boring. In fact, I think it's very good content, but I know that to a lot of folks, it's like, I'm not going to sit here and draw a person or watch a person drawing when I could be watching something wild. But I was really surprised because I posted that video and then a bunch of folks came through and watched it, and I got a bunch of thumbs up and support. I'm sure no small part of that was y'all coming through, the Bear Squad representing. I know, right? The clickbait thumbnails. How many polar bears doing shocked faces am I gonna have to draw? Oh, even the thought of doing that makes me a little bit sad. All right, we've got now the flowers. And the flowers are sort of these cells, these cellular clumps of tiny little petals. So I'm drawing them not as little petals because that would take forever, and also the drawing is already very small, so that would be very hard to do. But instead I'm kind of squinting my eyes and I'm thinking about them as shapes. So instead it's going to be just these little cells, these little clumps here, and those are going to be the groups of petals. And the overall effect, since they're mostly white and then the bush itself is light to dark green and sort of a big gradient, they'll stand right out. We've got a big Nintendo Direct coming up tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have to say. I know that there's going to be a lot of news about Pikmin, which I'm very excited about. Love my little Pikmin. Maybe I should do a little bit of Pikmin painting. I've painted Pikmin a few times over the years, and it's always been the best thing. I mean, you know me, I love drawing small, but I also love drawing small things. I love sort of microcosmic little paintings, self-contained worlds, and also the idea of little Pikmin running around with full-sized objects is endlessly appealing. Now, as I build in all of these little shapes, I'm kind of picking and choosing which areas I want to leave light. And I'm thinking about the gradient of the bush as well as I build it out. I know that up here, of course, it's going to be the sunniest, so I want this area to be really bright and light, but also that means in the background I want there to be very deep shadows to contrast it and make it feel like it's glowing. And then down at the bottom, I want really dark shades underneath, but maybe more of a medium tone to meld it together. And the more that we can condense these shadows into a sort of a plane, the more it'll feel natural. But what are y'all getting up to today? Is it a work day for everybody? Now I'm going to switch to blue. And I'm going to block out some of the shadow shapes that are underneath. And now we've got ourselves a sketch. And I've already pre-wet my brushes, so I can just go straight in. So I'm going to put down some colors on the palette here. There's two things that I haven't done yet. One is I need another piece of tape on this palette so that it doesn't fly up randomly while I'm mixing my colors together. And the other is I don't think I tweeted that we're going live. All right. Done and done. Now I can focus on making a pretty picture. So I've got my permanent white down. That'll be used quite a bit in this painting because I'll be painting opaquely over the top for those flowers. But also I need some nice, soft, subtle melting colors. So I'm going to go with primary blue. And I'll be mixing that together, of course, with a little bit of primary yellow for those nice sunny leaves. I also want to have a little bit of my... I've got so many different primary yellow tubes here. I really need to separate those out. But I have a leaf yellow that I also really want to use for this. There it is. And it is called Linden Green, which was given to me a couple years ago on my birthday. It's a really, really nice green yellow, as you can see, and it's great, especially for transparent leaf color. I'm also going to put on a different blue. I'm going to use my ultramarine. So that'll be for the initial pass. I'm going to use those colors. So the first thing I want to do is just establish the overall mass of the bush. So I'm going to go in with just a little bit of white, but I'm mostly going transparent on this one. So yellow, straight up. Yellow and white. Little tap of that linden green. Very, very loose mixture. And then I'm going to get the clean brush. And I'm going to go over this whole dang thing. And of course we'll have, since I'm using a watercolor pencil, I'm going to have the colors from that pencil kind of melting through, which is really beautiful. And I'm going to cover the entire thing. We're going to kind of do almost an undertone. Because the whitest spots in the painting I want to leave for the flowers. So just want to make sure I get a nice even coat. Not too much water. We're not trying to drench the thing. We're not trying to drown the paper. We just need enough that all the colors will melt happily together. All right. Extremely bright and sunny. Yellow. And then I'm tapping just a little bit of blue into it to bring it back down to earth. And then here we go. And then we're going to very quickly go in and start adding more blue. And even more blue. We're going to build down a gradient into this plant. And then I'm going to drop in, with less water, a stronger green. So I'm mixing in the yellow and the blue back into the mixture to really deepen that green. And I'm just dropping that in areas where the shadows are stronger. Okay, and now I'm going to clean that out, thin it. And now I want to paint the grass around the bush, so I'm going to go back in with the linden green and a little bit of that primary blue. And we don't want to skimp on those colors. We want to go really rich. And as I work into this, I'm not adding more water to the paint, I'm just adding more paint so that I'm getting more pigment. And I'm putting down some shadows underneath the tree here. And I don't want to overmix into this. I'm going to be adding much darker shadows to the bush itself, but not quite yet because the paper is still very wet and it would just end up looking muddy. So I need to wait a little bit for it to dry, but I'm adding some sort of indications of leaves around the outside edge. We got some lefties in the chat representing. We love to see it. There are dozens of us. Okay, let's clean off some of this green here. Or at the very least, thin it down. And I've got my air conditioner blasting today. It's very warm, and I'm in my little studio, so the paper is probably going to dry pretty fast, if I had to guess. So I'm trying to take that into account as I work on this. Grab a bit of that ultramarine. I want to move the idea of the shadows into more of a blue space as I push the picture backwards. And I'll keep the background fairly nebulous because I want the focus to be on this foreground element, but we're not going to neglect some of those background details, especially there's a tree behind this bush that I want to put particular emphasis on, especially on this side because the darkness of the shadows are very strong. But now I'm going to just water this all the way down and maybe even add a little bit of pink just for a little variance. That nice strong pink color with the white. Dull it in a little bit with the green. Take some of the pigment out of the brush because that pink is very strong. And of course, having something with a red coloring is going to help really bring out the brightness of that green, make it feel extra vibrant. Hey, Hugo, how's it going? Hope you're doing well today. Having a very good time laying into a new painting. And I'm just taking a little bit of this pink mixture and I'm putting it into the shadows of the bush. And a lot of this will be painted over later on, but I want it just so it peeks through and we have a little bit of color cohesion with the stuff I've put in the other areas in the painting. Now, while we wait for this to dry a little bit, we're going to take our first stretch break. So go ahead and grab a drink and snack and stretch it out. And we'll be back in about a minute. Let's do it. All right. And as expected, this thing is already at the techie stage. It is drying up very fast. You can see it's drying unevenly in spots based on where I put the water previously. I guess you can't really tell on camera, but let me tell you, in person, there is a big dip in the paper over here because I added water on this side, but the middle had already started drying up pretty thoroughly. But because the middle is drying up pretty thoroughly, that means I can move on to some shading. So in the middle of this here tree or bush, I'm going to put some blue shadows. I'm going to go relatively light at first, from top to bottom, with this kind of purpley blue, this bright hydrangeic blue. We're going to spot in and you can tell that I'm kind of locking my hand at an angle for this. My stroke direction is all kind of downward. And that's because I want to encourage the viewer's eye to understand this as directional lighting, that there is a shadow being cast underneath. And if you take a good close look at a lot of background art, especially Japanese background art, they do this a lot. They will have that sort of directional painting with light lines. And it's a very good and subtle way to make it so that you don't even have to, like, you know, animate any additional light effects. It's all implied. The movement of the light, even the sun sort of dappling through the leaves. You don't even have to animate anything moving around. It's just sort of understood that there's this sun beaming down through. And as we get down toward the bottom, we're going to do the same thing we did with the green itself. We're going to go darker, and we're going to change the color and tint a little tiny bit. I'm going to be adding in more of that linden green to my ultramarine blue. And I don't want to lose too much of that sort of bright bounciness to the blue, so I'm adding back in some of that primary blue. It'll be a lot darker down here at the bottom. And even though the branches themselves inside this plant are going to be eventually drawn a little bit darker, I do want to take this opportunity, while I've got the blue here that's a darker color than the leaves, to block in where all of those branches are going to go, so I don't have to think too hard about it later on. Save me a bit of planning. I'm cutting around lighter areas so that I can have kind of a three-dimensionality to the bush. I want spots where clearly there are lighter leaves pushing out toward the viewer. I'm even going to make this a little purplier. For a lot of these shadows, I just sort of unfocus my eyes as I look at the original subject, and I try to find the biggest areas of color blocks, the biggest dark areas, the biggest light areas. Because if I can focus in and find those and place them in approximately the right positions, then I'll gain a lot of veracity. It'll feel real. Because when a person is looking at a subject, the final painting, their brain does a lot of heavy lifting. And thank goodness, because my brain can't lift that much and it needs help from the viewer. So it's very, very helpful to look for those spots. I think a lot of people explain, I think a lot of teachers, art teachers and things, explain about finding the big blocks of color and sort of getting those in place. But I haven't heard too many talk about why. And I think it's just really cool. Like, you can have a very impressionistic painting. I could paint this way looser than I already have, but you would understand that it's a bush as long as a lot of the light and dark are in their right place. Art is just a lot of meeting in the middle. And I don't want to go too in between on these shading sections because I want it to have a strong sort of graphic appearance. But if you had looked away from this painting process when it was still sort of that amorphous, like, green shape, and you look back at it now with just even a little bit of initial shading, like, it takes on a form. Where do you buy your gouache? It's a bit hard to find Windsor and Newton in Canada. It definitely can be. I get mine. I'm over on the East Coast, and there is a place in Halifax called Desserts. I think they have a few locations around Canada, and that's where I get most of my paint from, in addition to other supplies. If there's ever a really tricky color I can't find, sometimes I have to resort to Amazon, but it's pretty rare that Desserts doesn't have what I need. I have found over the last year or so, supplies in general all across the world have kind of dried up a little. So if you need something really obscure, it can be difficult. But if you just need the primary sets, those are readily available at a lot of like local art stores. And luckily, they also ship online, so that helps tremendously. Because I live out in the middle of nowhere. Near lots of beautiful nature, but not near a lot of art supplies. Now, when you build something that has a graphic quality to it like this, and you don't go too overboard with the rendering, you can get a lovely kind of sun-drenched or sun-soaked effect, where it looks like it's almost like a bleached photograph. Hey, look at that! Look at that! Thank you, Taos, for subscribing. Glad to have you. It's really fun that one of them finally went through. So I'm way too excited about that, but hell yeah. It's very cute when it works, right? Now up here we've got even more little shadows that I need to build through. Yeah, I made that animation just for YouTube. And of course it will also work on my Twitch streams as well, but when I was like planning and building stuff out for my YouTube channel, that was one of the first things that I did. And I think it's pretty cute. Now, since I know that the direction of the sun is going to be like this, I want to build out some extra shadows down here. Hey, Evie, it's good to see you. Alright, let's clean up some of the shadow color here. Get myself a spot of paper towel. Alright. Jefferson Lima, thank you so much for subscribing. Yeah, one of the things that really struck me when I first saw this figure of this bush was how the shadows in the background interacted with it. And it's something that's always also very intimidating to paint. Because, you know, you get the shape set up, you get the silhouette, you get all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to go in and you're going to mispaint somewhere. And you're going to try to That was on purpose. When I got into the zone, I wanted to turn my mic down because the air conditioner was going and just listen to the music. I'm here. I'm okay. But yeah, messing with a figure with shadows is very intimidating. But it is not impossible. And in fact, you can make stuff look pretty darn cool if you surround it with shadow. The bravery test, as they say. Now I've got this nice amorphous set of shapes that are all iconic and representative of the various things that I saw in the background. And it's really easy. to get caught up on those details. Sometimes you want to do that, in fact. But for this instance, I have to always keep in mind that the thing that struck me when I originally saw the bush was not the fact that it was a tree behind the bush. It was the fact that there was a dark shape behind it that was making everything in front of it like really expressive and light. So I don't need to block in every single little gnarl in the bark. Instead, I just need to put in the silhouette shape of a tree. And then it is what it needs to be. Now, hopefully I've left myself enough time. Yeah, that seems more or less dry. So now I can start putting the flowers on this lovely little bush. So let's go ahead and... Actually, where's my calligraphy brush? Switch over to the big one. And actually, before I start this, I'll give the background a second to dry, and we can take our second stretch of the day. So let's stretch it out. Be back in a minute. All right. Let's go ahead and... I've got my big calligraphy brush now. Look how much bigger the bristles are. I never really look at them side by side. This is my usual guy, and then this is the jumbo. But that's what I'll be using for putting the little petals on. Mostly because it holds a lot of paint, and it's nice not to have to go back constantly to the well. So I'm going to dip straight into the white gouache. The little flowers I want to be the absolute brightest thing in the entire painting. And I'm just going to go into every place where I put in... where I drew in those little circles, and I'm just going to fill them in with white gouache. And I only need a very minuscule amount of water. The brush holds a lot of water, but it's very important that the paint go on relatively thick so it can maintain its opacity. think that's going to do it. This one came together even faster than I thought it would. It always feels nice when you set out to capture a thing and then you manage to do it. Now, the most fun part, of course. We got to take the tape off this bad boy. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And as always, peel away from the page to avoid ripping. You can't always avoid ripping, honestly, but 90% of the time you can avoid it pretty easily by just peeling away from your page. Now let's sign this little guy. It is the 20th of June. Well, that's going to do it for me today, folks. Let me tell you, I'll be back on Thursday over on Twitch if you want to come hang out with us over on the Twitch. It's a very fun time. It's a little bit more chaotic than my chill painting streams. So if you're new and you want to see things get a little hectic and also have a great deal of audience interaction, come on over to the twitch.tv/EiffelArt on Thursday. But I'll be back here Tuesdays. This is the spot. YouTube Tuesdays, as I will now call it. Come on back next time for some more chill, relaxing painting. And I will see you then. Goodbye, everybody.